7 energy cycles quietly shape every chosen one's fate. There is something happening beneath the surface of your life, something ancient, something intelligent, something that doesn't shout but whispers. It's not a force you can see with your eyes, but if you've ever felt a pull you couldn't explain, a calling you couldn't deny, or a storm within that no one else could feel, then you've already touched it. You might not have had the words for it, but your soul knows. We call them energy cycles. And there are 7 of them. 7 subtle, sacred, and powerful currents that quietly shape every moment of your existence, especially if you are one of the chosen. These cycles are not random. They are not chaotic. They are precise. They are the spiritual architecture of your evolution. And once you begin to see them, you realize that nothing in your life has ever been accidental. Every heartbreak, every loss, every breakthrough, every strange synchronicity, it was all part of a deeper rhythm, a spiral, not a straight line. And the deeper you go, the more you realize your fate is not written in stone, it's written in movement, in motion, in energy.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
As a chosen one, your life is not just a personal journey, it is a cosmic assignment. And you are not here to live a comfortable life. You are here to awaken. And awakening isn't a one-time event. It's a process, a sequence, a cycle. That's why so many chosen ones feel like they're trapped in loops of pain, of purpose, of passion, of doubt. They're not stuck. They're cycling. And you can either spin in those cycles unconsciously, or you can learn to ride them with awareness and mastery. That's what we're here to do. The first energy cycle begins when you are born, not just into this life, but into your spiritual memory. It's the cycle of disruption. Everything that breaks you is part of this cycle. It's the energy of awakening through destruction. Your comfort is no longer useful. So your life begins to rupture. Relationships fall apart. You feel disconnected from what used to fulfill you. People begin to leave. You start to question everything. The pain feels personal, but it's not. It's vibrational. It's your soul shaking the system, saying, "We can't stay here anymore." If you resist this cycle, it becomes suffering. If you surrender to it, it becomes transformation. The key to surviving the cycle of disruption is not to fix what's falling apart, but to feel everything it's exposing. Because what's really being dismantled is the false version of you, the one built in fear, the one that kept you small, the one that fit in. And so, the more you cling to your old identity, the more the cycle will intensify. That's why some people experience breakdown after breakdown. They're not cursed. They're being invited, but they keep saying no. After the breakdown, if you stay open, you enter the cycle of emptiness. This one is brutal. It's the void, the silence, the in-between. You've left the old, but the new hasn't arrived. You feel like nothing makes sense. You don't know who you are. You feel unmotivated, uninspired, alone. But this is sacred space. This is the womb of rebirth. And here's the paradox. The more comfortable you become in the emptiness, the more quickly your next self begins to emerge. But most people panic in the void. They run back to old patterns, old relationships, old distractions. They try to fill the emptiness. But you cannot fill what is meant to be felt. You have to let the silence strip you clean. Because only an empty vessel can receive divine transmission. And that's what's coming next. The third energy cycle is the cycle of revelation. This one is powerful. It's when the downloads start. The visions, the dreams, the synchronicities, the sense that something bigger is guiding you. You begin to see signs everywhere, numbers, animals, strangers with messages. You start to feel that the universe is talking directly to you. And it is. But it's not just giving you magic. It's giving you instructions. It's showing you who you really are. The veil lifts. You remember pieces of your soul's mission. You feel the stirrings of purpose. You start to understand why you had to go through all the pain. But this cycle is not just mystical, it's practical. You are being given information, tools, codes, and if you ignore them, you delay your destiny. The fourth is the cycle of resistance. This one always follows the revelation, because once you see your truth, your ego panics. It starts to fight back. It says, "You're not ready. You're not worthy. People will reject you. You'll fail." And for many, this is where the cycle resets. They retreat. They abandon the calling. They go back to the familiar. But if you can sit with the resistance, if you can look it in the eyes and say, "I see you, but I'm going anyway," you break the loop. You rise. So I ask you, what cycle are you in right now? Are you being disrupted, emptied, revealed, or resisted? Because here's the deeper truth. These cycles don't just happen once. They spiral. They repeat at higher levels of refinement. Every time you expand, you enter them again. Each time asking more of you. Each time stripping more falsehood. Each time unlocking more potential. And the more aware you become, the more you can navigate them with grace. Chosen ones don't have easier lives. They have deeper ones. They're not here for comfort. They're here for evolution. And these 7 energy cycles are the map of that evolution. They are not your enemy. They are your initiation. And this is only the beginning. The invisible engine, how energy loops trap or liberate the chosen. There is an invisible engine inside each of us. It isn't made of organs or neurons. It doesn't operate on science as we know it. It's made of vibration. And this engine, this inner mechanism, runs our lives more than we realize. It determines how we respond to fear, how we chase desire, how we sabotage growth, and how we silently repeat the same patterns over and over again, even when we think we've moved on. For the chosen ones, this engine is more sensitive, more volatile, and more sacred, because it's tuned not only to their personal story, but to their soul's contract. What we don't often talk about is the way energy loops operate within us. These loops are not random, they are feedback systems. They're like spiritual algorithms, constantly replaying the stories we haven't resolved. The thoughts we keep thinking, the emotions we keep recycling, the identities we keep clinging to, these become loops. And if we're not conscious of them, they become prisons. You wake up every day thinking it's a new day, but internally, you're still in the same loop. Same wound, different scenery. This is the 5th energy cycle, the cycle of reflection. It's the most subtle, but one of the most profound. Here, life mirrors back to you exactly what you need to see, but only if you're willing to look beyond the surface. The people who trigger you, the patterns that follow you, the situations that break your heart. Over and over, none of these are punishments. They are reflections, opportunities, invitations. Every time you avoid them, the loop gets tighter. But every time you lean in with awareness, the loop begins to dissolve. You have to start asking yourself different questions in this cycle. Not why is this happening to me, but what part of me is this trying to show me? That's the work. And it's not glamorous. It's spiritual excavation, shadow work, radical self-honesty. You have to become the watcher of your own programming. You have to notice the ways you abandon yourself to be liked, the ways you shrink to avoid being judged, the ways you chase love just to feel enough. These reflections are not judgments. They are maps, each one pointing toward the energy you still need to heal. And the deeper you go into this cycle, the more responsibility you must take. Because once you see the loop, you can't pretend you don't. That's the double-edged sword of awareness. It gives you power, but it removes the comfort of blame. This is where the chosen ones begin to evolve in silence, not through external success, but internal mastery. They start recognizing their patterns in real time. They start choosing differently, not because they're trying to be better, but because they're becoming more themselves, more aligned, more whole. This is the quiet liberation, the unseen transformation, the kind of growth that no one claps for, but the soul remembers forever. But here's where it gets even deeper. The sixth energy cycle is the cycle of expansion. And most people think expansion is about abundance, purpose, manifestation. But that's only the surface. True expansion is about capacity. Can you hold more light without burning out? Can you hold more truth without collapsing? Can you hold more love without running? Because here's the spiritual paradox. Every time you expand, the universe shows you everything that's still too small. Your old beliefs, your old habits, your old support systems. They all begin to crack. And if you cling to what used to hold you, it will now hurt you. Expansion is not just about receiving more, it's about becoming more. And that means releasing everything that cannot come with you. This is why chosen ones often feel like they're constantly losing things. People, jobs, homes, identities. Because the energy is making room, not as punishment but as preparation. But most of us resist this. We try to expand while staying the same. We try to ascend while dragging our baggage. We try to evolve without letting go. And that's when we suffer. So I ask you, what are you still carrying that can't survive your next level? Because that's what this cycle demands. Radical honesty. Ruthless alignment. You have to stop negotiating with your lower self. You have to stop asking for permission from parts of you that are afraid. You have to stop explaining your awakening to people still asleep. This is the threshold, and only the true version of you can cross it. But expansion is also not a finish line. It's not one big leap. It's a series of micro-deaths and rebirths. It's learning to breathe in wider spaces, to trust in unfamiliar energies, to walk with faith in places where your mind can't follow. And every time you expand, the universe expands with you. Your reality starts bending. Opportunities appear. People show up. Magic happens. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. This is the moment when the chosen one begins to glimpse their power. Not the ego's power, but soul power. The kind that doesn't control but creates. The kind that doesn't dominate but resonates. The kind that doesn't chase but attracts. And when you start living from this place, you become a living transmission. Your energy becomes medicine. Your presence becomes a portal. You stop trying to change the world and you start being the change. But there is still one more cycle, one more door, one more fire to walk through. The sacred burn, why every chosen one must walk through fire to hold light. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when everything they thought they were, everything they built, everything they believed, every identity they clung to begins to burn. Not metaphorically, but energetically. It's not just a clearing, it's a cremation. It's violent, tender, sacred. And it's necessary, because the light that wants to live through you cannot pass through density. It cannot move through the masks. It cannot breathe in the false. That's why the seventh energy cycle is the cycle of purification, the sacred burn. This fire is not something you summon. It arrives when you're ready, whether you think you are or not. You feel it when your old life no longer fits, but the new one hasn't taken shape. You feel it when your passions begin to dissolve, your relationships shift in unexpected ways, your body begins to purge, your mind turns inward, and your soul begins to scream not for answers, but for release. This is not the dark night of the soul. This is deeper. This is the death of the ego's last layer. It's when the final illusions get pulled from your grip, the ones you didn't even know you were still holding. The spiritual ego, the identity of the healer, the one who is woke, the one who knows. Even the identity of chosen must go through the fire, because the real you doesn't need a name. It only needs truth. and truth only arrives when everything false has been consumed. This fire will touch every area of your life. You might lose relationships you thought were soul contracts. You might walk away from a mission you thought was your purpose. You might find that the person who started the journey can no longer survive the frequency of where you're going. And that's the point. If you try to bring the old self into the new dimension, you will suffer. You will feel torn. You will feel split. You will feel like something is dying, and it is. But here's the wisdom. What's dying is not you, it's what you are not. So many of us try to bypass this burn. We distract ourselves with spiritual knowledge, rituals, affirmations, even service. But the fire doesn't care about what you do. It only cares about what you are. And it will keep burning until there is nothing left to hide behind. Nothing left to protect. Nothing left but presence. So I ask you, with every ounce of sincerity, what are you still protecting that no longer serves your soul? Because until you answer that, you will resist the fire. And the more you resist, the more it will hurt. But when you surrender, when you step willingly into the flame, you begin to see it not as destruction, but as alchemy. You begin to feel the divine intelligence behind your losses, the mercy hidden in your heartbreak, the grace behind your grief. You begin to see that what you called falling apart was really your structure being reshaped to hold light. This is the sacred burn, and it doesn't just remove, it reveals. It doesn't just destroy, it designs. Because once it's done, something else begins to emerge, something ancient, something holy, something that was always there, buried beneath the noise you. Not the version of you that was shaped by fear, not the one that was built by trauma or survival, but the one that was encoded with a mission before you were born. The one that remembers why you came here, the one that operates from stillness, the one that no longer reacts but responds, no longer strives but radiates, no longer seeks but embodies. And when this version of you begins to rise, the world around you begins to shift in ways that seem impossible. People begin to say there's something different about you. Opportunities begin to flow without force. Time feels different. Your body feels lighter. Your emotions become clearer. And your path, once so confusing, begins to open in ways you couldn't have planned if you tried. But none of this is about magic. It's about alignment. Because the fire didn't give you something new, it simply cleared what was in the way. This is the real power of a chosen one. Not that you are better or more enlightened, but that you were willing to die so that the divine could live through you. You were willing to lose everything false to become everything true. You were willing to walk through fire not because you wanted to prove anything, but because you couldn't live a lie anymore. This is the edge most people never cross. They want the light, but not the burn. They want the gifts, but not the cost. They want the glory, but not the grief. But there is no bypass. Every chosen one must walk through this door, alone, naked, stripped of identity. And only then do they realize the fire wasn't the end, it was the beginning. So now I ask you, are you willing to be reborn, even if it means everything you thought was you has to die? If the answer is yes, then you're ready for the final transmission, the final rebirth, how the death of the old self awakens the divine blueprint. There's a moment after the fire, after the collapse, after the silence when something begins to stir inside you. Not with loudness, not with urgency, but with a kind of quiet certainty, a new rhythm, a new language, a new presence. You don't quite recognize yourself anymore, but you also know you've never felt more you. This is the beginning of the final cycle, the cycle of embodiment. And it's the most mysterious of them all, because nothing outwardly dramatic happens here. There are no more explosions, no more chaos, just presence, just being. And for the chosen ones, this is where destiny finally stops being a concept and becomes a current flowing through every breath. This is not the end of your journey. It's the start of your real life. But now, You're no longer seeking answers, you're becoming the answer. You're no longer chasing purpose, you are purpose. You don't need to prove anything, because your energy speaks before your mouth does. You walk differently. You listen deeper. You trust more fully. Why? Because you've died. And in the ashes of that death, your divine blueprint has finally been activated. You begin to live not from desire, but from design. You say yes only when your soul vibrates. You say no without guilt. You create without overthinking. You speak with clarity, not to impress, but to resonate. And most importantly, you stop trying to be anything. You simply are. This is embodiment. Not perfection, but integration. Not performance, but presence. And suddenly, the 7 energy cycles don't feel like phases of pain anymore. They feel like sacred initiations. You understand why the disruption had to come. You give thanks for the emptiness, the resistance, the fire. You bow to the reflections that once broke your heart, because they were your teachers. You see that nothing was ever random. Every pattern, every loop, every loss, it was all designed to break you open, not apart, to unlock the divine code buried beneath your conditioning. And now that you've arrived, you begin to see the world differently. You see others not as threats, but as mirrors. You see suffering not as something to fear, but as a portal. You see love not as an emotion, but as a frequency that you are. And from this place, you begin to move through life like a quiet storm, gentle, but unstoppable. But here's the final truth: embodiment is not static. It's alive. It's responsive. It deepens with every breath. That's why you must continue to tend to your energy, to your integrity, to your alignment. Because now, everything you touch is affected by your frequency. You are no longer just a person, you are a field, a resonance, a living transmission, and that is sacred. So what now? Now you live fully, presently, authentically. You let your walk be your message. You let your silence teach. You let your joy be your protest. You let your heartbreak deepen your compassion. You let your existence become an offering. Because you are not here to escape this world, you are here to light it up. And remember, this isn't a path for the faint-hearted. It's a path for those who are willing to lose everything false to become everything real. But if you've made it this far, then you already know you didn't choose this path. It chose you. Your only job now is to embody the truth you've remembered, not just in ceremony, not just in solitude, but in the mundane, in the chaos, in the love and the loss and the ordinary moments, because that's where the divine lives now in you. So I leave you with this. Can you be light without needing to shine? Can you be truth without needing to speak? Can you be love without seeking recognition? Because when you can, you'll know you're no longer becoming the chosen one. You are. And so it is.